All right, so I'm here today with Pawan, alumnus of IIT KGP.
So for me, for my family, anywhere is good. So KGP is like both a overnight train away.
While you are like, I built it out of India, where manufacturing is not very well defined.
The way we leaving our jobs and starting this, it was like 7 years earlier than what I imagined.
There
Yeah,
is still a very wide gap between innovators in India and innovators in the US. Correct. So in a way, maybe what you are saying, Pawan, you are like setting up the infrastructure for.
to start believe in themselves and then start companies. Just take that.
Hello, friends. Today I'm here with Pawan. How are you, Pawan?
I'm good, Atal. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, Pawan, you shared a lot of things. So, where were you born?
I was born in a small town called Machilipatnam.
Machilipatnam, I've never even
Yeah,
heard of that town.
yeah, yeah.
And then, were you like a very smart guy? Because now you build a lot of rockets.
Oh no, I mean I'm actually opposite to Smart. I was used to be like one of the last few people in my school, so I was a very bad student in school.
And what did you decide to do after you got into KGP and you were graduating?
I decided to join ISRO, where most of my friends wanted to go abroad or take up like large fat paychecks from finance or like very other industries. But I decided to like join a government job in ISRO at the time, a very unconventional move at KGP.
And have you met Modi, by the way, the Prime Minister?
Well, I think I met him like 4 5 times so far.
And what have you launched in the world?
I've launched like our team at Skyroot, the company which I am a co-founder of. We launched India's first privately developed rocket to space, and we're like just few months away from launching India's first privately launched satellite to orbit as well. Yeah.
Very cool. And what's like your message to all the people out there who are like young and want to build something?
Oh, I think firstly, I think they should think really big and then like start something like the best or of this of something really high impact in their field of interest. And then like the world is going to conspire to make it happen. You build something big, and then people would love to work for you, and investors would like to invest in you, and then all the support governments want to support you, and I think you'll everything will fall, all the stars will align, and so my this and my advice would be is to think super big, and also like to start the companies. If you are looking to start the companies, take the first step to start the company.
Very cool. So today, Pawan and I recorded a long episode where we walked through his entire journey. He was not the smartest kid in the class, but then he's building some of the smartest things on the planet, which is called as rocket science in a lot of ways. So he does that rocket science on a daily basis. Pawan has shared an entire story about how you can build startups in space tech, how you can actually think bigger. And he's one of the first people who actually got support from the government of India to build this out. Like government changed policies, and he was the first beneficiary. And he shared how India has changed now with in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of progressive mindset, and taking India to space. So reach out to us on how you like this episode, and we look forward to your feedback and hope you enjoy it and it inspires you more. Thank you so much for Pawan for being here today. And a person who has actually sent a rocket to space. So this is going to be a very interesting conversation because with Pawan, I'm gonna ask him very authentic story about like his journey, early days, and all. So Pawan, like I think a lot of people want to aspire to the level you have done, and like this is like something which, as a kid, like 7 year old kid or 8 year, when you ask them that they're like, hey, I want to grow up to be a person who can even be like maybe like more of an astronaut too, or even if like thinking about rocket is a big dream for someone. So tell me like about like how was your early childhood like? Where did you grow up, and was this always in your mind that I want to launch rockets?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me, Atal, and it was great meeting you in San Francisco, and I really loved your energy and then what you're doing to the KGP community. So it's been like super pleasure to be on your show and going to our own KGP community more and more. So very excited to be here, and so basically, as a very young kid. Most people don't believe, but I'm an horrible kid. I mean, like, I'm talking about horrible at studies. I was like so bad at studies. And in fact, literally, I remember my dad is an engineer, and I didn't know how to do math and science and all. They were like all so difficult for me. And I grew up as a very, very bad student. And then like in fact like I was not enthused with anything. I was not excited with anything. I was just going to school, coming back, and then like my parents had a lot of expectations on me, and then I hardly studied anything much. And then I was like I still remember like failing few subjects in my school, and I was not at all a good student, and haven't had like huge dreams, nothing. So I'm a very like non-standard, substandard kid, I would say. So not a very interesting childhood. And yeah, so I think probably like I'm part of like I never even imagined that I would be even close to successful, because I was not at all good at anything basically. So that's how my school began. And but fortunately, what happened is that until my eighth standard, I was I mean, I was such a bad student, like I said, and then my dad one day thought that I want my kid to go to IIT. Yeah. So I was not at all a good kid at all. I was not at all studying well at all. And then my dad had a dream that my son had to go to IIT. It's typical, it's like a common middle class dream for every Indian family. So the same
Yeah,
dream
it's
my
like,
dad had, but I'm really
yeah.
appreciative of that.
It's like the similar
Yeah,
story
yeah.
I had is like my dad wanted me to go to IIT. So I was like, I don't know about myself. At least I can do that for my dad. So at least like it is at least, something more about at least helping
Yeah.
his dream to be fulfilled.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean that's the story I think for most households in India,
Mhm.
and then like, but one thing which was very appreciative of my dad was that even though I was so bad a student, he dreamt that I should get into an IIT. So typically you
Mm.
think that people who study really well get into IITs, the best in the classes get into IITs. Even they don't get into IITs. And then my dad dreamt of me getting into IIT when I was such a bad student. So that was good, and he joined me in a IIT foundation in my eighth standard when I was doing so bad at school, and I had to do my
Uh-huh.
school and then IIT foundation again. And also like the IIT foundation folks were not even taking me. They were not even taking me thinking because my score was so bad and my rank was so bad. They were not even taking me. So he got some recommendation from somewhere and then got me in. And then the IIT Foundation started, and then and it after eighth standard, I was doing my IIT Foundation, and then I went to. I was also doing very bad at school. Then my parents decided that okay, he's not studying in this school, and my school was like quite, you can say like a very posh school with a lot of extracurricular activities and a lot of interesting people. So my dad said that that may not be a great environment for me to study, and then they decided to put me in a from an ICSE school to a state syllabus school. A typical school which makes people study, cram stuff, and then bring good grades in their curriculum. So I went to that school. It was a popular school in Andhra at that time. So I was joined in that school, and then after that joining that school, what happened is that because I've done some IT foundation, a little bit of IT foundation, what they do is that they teach ninth standard stuff in eighth standard. That's what they do in IT Foundation. So I had
Uh-huh.
little bit exposure to what I did in ninth standard, and our math teacher used to have a very peculiar way of giving problems on the board and then ask
Mhm.
people to solve because I already have seen them before. I used to solve them, and my math teacher used to think I'm a genius. So that's how people thought that this guy is brilliant. Suddenly, like from people
Uh,
thinking that I'm useless to suddenly teachers thinking I'm brilliant have started in ninth standard. And I never got that much attention. And just to preserve that attention, I used to study better and better. And then, like, I really build that build that love for math and physics in that journey of transformation. And from last of the my class, I climbed ladders to become like one of the first in the class. And thanks to my teachers who really believed in me that this guy had some spark. And
yeah.
that's how
So
I
you
started. So basically,
uh,
very
mhm. Mhm.
typical, very bad schooling. And if with that background, if I've come this far, just imagine that anybody can do anything. Literally, it's proof that anybody can do anything.
Wow, so very cool. So I mean, it's like your story is very much like, hey, this is a normal kid. This guy was not good at studies, which means like, someone who is like living in, let's say, even a village in India, if aspires and just be persistent and consistent, they can achieve anything in life.
Absolutely. I mean, that's I'm the living proof for that. Literally, and people, if you look at what I was, I mean,
Mhm.
nobody would have imagined a kid so disinterested and less enthusiastic, even not achieving anything, not good at anything, becoming like, what I'm doing right now, with this
Mhm.
so exciting, so glamorous, and such with lot and lot of stuff happening, around what I'm doing. So I think
Yeah,
that's a something which is probably a lot of luck also is involved, and
yeah,
but also prove that anybody can do anything.
got it. So, Bhavan, how did you end up getting into IIT KGP and not like a lot of people go to Madras, I guess, right? From South India. So, what made you go to IIT KGP?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah. So basically, and then just to continue the story, right? So
Mm,
then I became a good kid, and then I prepared well for IIT. I used to study. I
mm,
think I'm like maybe 16 hours a day. I mean, crazy. I'm one of
mm,
the people who used to study crazily. And people who
mm.
study less got better ranks than me, but I used to study a lot, 16 hours a day, and then and then I got I think my rank was like 1614 or something like that. And then
Wow.
I was very clear that I want to do mechanical engineering because I love machines. I really
Mm,
love machines. I want to work in machines. I want to build machines. So machines was my interest, and physics was my interest, and then machines was because of part of it has a lot of physics in it. So I loved machines, and then that through that rank, the only top IIT I got mechanical engineering was IIT KGP,
Ah,
and in fact, like I was the last rank in the mechanical engineering department at IIT KGP. Probably I missed by just one rank. If
wow.
even if I would have got 1 mark less, I would not have gone to
Mm,
KGP. I would have gone to some
mm,
other IIT in mechanical engineering, but I would not have gone to KGP. It's just that one mark made my KGP dream happen. And also,
mm.
like you asked, like most people choose IIT Madras. There was also something called like mechanical design or something in IIT Madras, which
Ah,
was also a very cool course. I applied there also. There, even people with like 2000 ranks also get. I would have got there. But then I preferred KGP also because I'm getting mechanical engineering. And also, like I'm from a town called Vizag. I grew up in a place called
mm,
Vizag, and Vizag is equidistance from KGP and Madras. Okay,
mm,
so for me, for my family, anywhere is good, So KGP is like both a overnight train away. Uh,
mm,
so that way, I think both were equal choice, and I got
mm,
mechanical engineering from KGP, and that's how I took KGP,
mm.
and I landed
Got
up in
it.
KGP.
Very cool. So now you are in KGP, like, you see all, first of all, what was the difference between reality and expectations that you had when you entered the college? So that's like my first question. And then how do you think, like, how did the KGP environment kind of shaped you?
Oh yeah, so absolutely. I think first thing is that getting into an IIT has become a big dream, So
Mm,
from 8th standard, after I joined like IIT Foundation, and then like 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 5 years of dreaming about IIT, and then finally got into IIT, luckily in the very first attempt, and then like after getting it, it's like a dream to be. However, like I was trained to think that you get into IIT and your life is set. That's it. I mean, you need not do anything in IIT. So I thought like
yeah,
you
yeah. Mm,
I thought like just enter IIT and then that's it. Your life is set, right? That was
mhm,
my belief at that point of time. So I went to KGP, and it was the first time I stayed away from home. And then, but still, I liked it because first time, like I'm outside of the house and in a new environment, meeting new people. But I have to stay in hostel and eat different food and all that. That was something different for me. But I got adjusted, and then I still remember like I had a wonderful roommate to start with. Uh, and then like we all joined in Triplum Hall, right? I don't know whether you joined in Triplum
Yeah.
Hall to start with.
Different hall.
So we're
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So our first year was in Triplum Hall, and then there was no there was no ragging or nothing. So basically, it was like it was like a free bird environment. And then first time I'm outside of home, and then like so free. So I think
Mhm.
the word I would say like what KGP felt like, it felt like extraordinary freedom. I mean, which I've never seen in my entire life. So it was so
Mm.
free. It was so cut off
Mm.
from the world. You can do whatever you want. You did not even go to school, even like classes you don't want to. You talk to whomever you want. You go whatever you stay whatever time you want. At home, you have all these timings, and then you have to be in this home. Then you can't do this, you can't do that. And then here it's all you can do whatever you want. So it's basically like all freedom out there. And KGP is, I think, even today, like KGP is synonymous to a great level of freedom. I think that's how I felt at KGP.
Mm.
And then 5 years at KGP, I'm a dual degree, mechanical dual degree, and 5 years at KGP, and then my entrepreneurial bug was bit at KGP. So
Mm.
I would not have been an entrepreneur if not for KGP, for sure, because I remember in my first year of college, I've been at Triplum Hall. I remember I was like in a very deep sleep, and then somebody was knocking at my door, and that guy was locking so much that I had to
Mm.
wake up and then open the door. And then they say, I asked them like what are you like what's happening, and then he said we are from ECEL, we are from ECEL, and we came to create awareness about entrepreneurship among the freshers. That's what they told.
Wow.
Some
Mm.
senior
Mm.
folks came, and then they told me a story about Gillette. Gillette is a blade company, and
Yeah.
they used to have factories at places where at places where there was no earthquakes and all that stuff. And then it was like quite exciting for me because coming from a very middle class background, I always wanted to be a businessman. I thought like business is outside the world, so only it is not for us. I mean, it's for somebody else, and
Mm.
only
Mm.
businessman is a different clan is what I used to think. And then
Mm.
after like looking at e-cell, and after looking at people building companies, after looking at success stories coming out of IIT and starting their own companies and making it big, looking at all this vibe, right? So the entrepreneurial vibe at KGP, because I remember at my time, most people wanted to build companies in KGP,
Mm.
and even our batch, many people started building companies right from
Mm.
KGP itself.
Yeah.
And then looking at all this, it made me like feel that I mean, entrepreneurship is not something very far, something which anybody can do. And
Mm.
I was fascinated with building businesses from my childhood, and then and then because I knew that it gives that independence, it gives that kind of freedom, it gives that kind of it is also an opportunity to build the nation, and it's literally nation building, and then also like it also generates wealth. There's a lot of benefits which entrepreneurship builds, and I always want to be an entrepreneur because of the journey and the vibe which our college used
Mm.
to have, and without that, I would not have even imagined of even starting a company. And at one point of time, in fact, I was so crazy of starting up that I
Uh,
decided not to sit for placements. I
wow.
was in I was just in my final year. I thought like I'll do something, but I'll not sit for placements. That was my thought that time. But then I was wondering what should I start. Then like I stumbled upon some ideas to start. I didn't know like how to raise capital. I don't know what is going to happen. And then like I gave up on the idea of starting the company. I was not bold enough to start a company straight out of college and sat for placements. And
Mm.
then ISRO came to campus. I was very crazy enough that when everybody wanted to do something, I was very clear that I'm a mechanical engineer. I love machines. I love what I
Mm.
was doing. And I felt like rockets are the most fascinating machines built by humans. And
Mm.
here I get a chance to work on some extraordinary stuff, built by ISRO, which is we are all proud of, as a nation that ISRO is building so much great stuff, and they all launched to the moon and always in the newspapers. It inspires
Mm.
every kid. So ISRO came to the campus, and I didn't sit for any other company. I just straight away
Wow.
waited until ISRO came, sat for ISRO, got lucky enough to get selected in ISRO, and then like the journey started there. Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy. Like you just knew this is my thing or I'm out, you know? It's like a lot of people are like playing around and like
Absolutely.
testing out the water.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And also like, as you know, right, everybody wanted like the high packages,
Yeah.
whoever gives the highest package, that's it. I mean, that's the measurement of what I want. So if somebody gives me like, 15 lakhs per 30 lakhs per annum, whatever it may be, I will, most people want to, queue up to join that, company. So I was not in that rat race. Somehow, I mean, like I was quite composed enough that I wanted to like get into like core mechanical engineering stuff, even though that was not very fancy in IITs, not very fancy even in our department. But I was like very clear that this is what I want to do, and it's also like ISRO was a government job. Just imagine like government job at that time. Hardly I remember like it used to pay like I used to get a salary of some 30,000 or 35,000 rupees a month or something, in that time. So it's like such a choice which probably nobody would want to get into, especially from IITs. But I didn't feel a bit, I didn't feel a pinch about like, joining ISRO, not being paid so much, not getting the big fat packages which most of my friends were getting, right? And not going abroad like for higher studies, all that was not somehow. I didn't feel bad at anything. In fact, I was so excited to join ISRO, and then like the journey started. And also like ISRO also was a very fascinating story, like how I got selected to ISRO also. Probably I'll speak it down the line, Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I would love to go deep into a lot of these parts where you shared like, okay, were so clear you want to go to Israel. Now, and you were like, hey, I liked building machines. Now, when I met you this year, one thing which was exceptional is you said, this is my first visit to Bay Area. Okay. Now, like, I mean, I think maybe the US. Now, what I'm very curious about is like, if someone wants to build rockets, I would be like, I don't know where to start, you know? While you are like, I built it out of India, where manufacturing is not very well defined, where there are thousands of constraints, knowledge is not there, people are not there. You kind of first you created the talent, then you created the whole infrastructure, and then you built it out. So I want to like, really know how so the question in short is like, how can someone who has nothing get started?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think what you said is right. In 2018, when I started, Skyroot along with my co-founder Bharat, at that time, I completed 6 years at ISRO. I had like, I had a great ride working for rockets, for the country. I was part of the extraordinary space program. I was part of one of the best missions one can be part of. And then like I had the core competency of the tech part, and I understood the business. I was like, spending a lot of time understanding the global industry, space industry, etc. And I was super clear. I was at that time, after learning so much about the industry, I was super clear that this is a phenomenal opportunity. I mean, India is the most cost-effective spacefaring nation. We launched a mission to the moon at a budget less than the cost of building a Hollywood movie, and we launched a mission to Mars, at the cost less than the Hollywood movie Martian. So that's the kind of cost efficiency we have. We have been a
Okay, so
spacefaring
I
nation since
so
60
so
years.
so one
Hardly,
thing I want to
yeah,
understand. So you said we can
yeah.
launch to moon, we can launch to Mars cheaper than any of these Hollywood movies, the budget they were built on.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's how we have done already, So ISRO has already launched missions to the Mars and Moon at budgets less than building a single Hollywood movie, So that's already been done and dusted. And, I was at ISRO, at that time when like Mars mission happened, and so we know that it's phenomenally capital efficient than any other country in the world. And I think, less than eight countries in the world has the capability to launch their own rockets. And India is one of them. And India is like one of the leading, players, the top five nations in the world with space technology, the leading in space technology. And that's what we have. We have the tech. we have the ecosystem, we have the manufacturing, the vendor base or the manufacturing ecosystem built by ISRO over 6 decades, and we are so cost efficient. But everything is part of the government. Most of it is part of the government sector. Uh, but the space industry is booming, space economy is booming. Even in 2018, space economy was more than $300 billion, and it was projected to become $1 trillion. So space is becoming more and more commercial, and India has all the ingredients, just that we don't have a private sector company. So that was like instinctively that was felt like an opportunity, number one. And number two, I felt that the future, when I asked myself, I was in the space industry, and when I asked myself, like, what is the future of Indian space industry? The future of Indian space industry is very clear to me that it was public-private partnership. You can't do it alone by ISRO. The private sector cannot do it on its own, and it has to be like both together, coexisting, helping each other out, and build a very strong space industry in India. That was very clear to me, and eventually I knew that this is going to happen. At one point of the time, maybe probably I was even ready to even wait for 10 years to make it to so that the policy come in, and the private ecosystem builds up, and and you can do everything you want. Like, it could take even 10 years, even the funding to come in, and because you need like huge capital to build a rocket company. So I was prepared, all in and all prepared for the worst of the worst scenarios, and I was all fully mentally prepared to take that leap of faith, come out of a very we can say very respectful job, very cushy job, very well settled job, and then and start a company in 2018 when there was literally nothing, no policy, no funding environment, none of the funds had a thesis for space, no talent in the private sector. So in all this, and people used to think, the perception is that rocket science is rocket science, and the people can't build it. I mean, private sector can't build it. There's a lot of red tape. It's impossible to do. It's just basically probably a dream than reality is what most people perceived it as. And in that scenario, took the leap of faith and started, because I knew it that this is an opportunity, and I knew it that there's something to be started. I knew it that this is going to happen at one point of time or other. The doors are going to open up, and then we could be the first beneficiary. And that's what actually happened. The doors have opened up just in 3 years of starting Skyroot. The Prime Minister announced the space policy, and then Skyroot became the first beneficiary of the policy by signing the first ever MOU with ISRO, where ISRO came forward to offer all the help. You use our facilities, you use our
Wow.
technology, you use our launch pads, and then build whatever you want. So that's the journey. And then we launched India's first privately developed rocket to space in 2022, almost 2 years ago. And then now we are about to launch India's first private orbital rocket, which will put satellites to orbit as well.
Wow. That's such an inspiring story. So walk me through the first 3 months of you in the game. You are like, now I'm in it, you know. And yes, I can see you leverage some of your existing relationships from Israel, but you are literally like, one or two people be like, hey, this is like all
Yeah,
setting up the whole physical infrastructure. And you said 3 years down the road, the policy changed and then ISRO came to help. But till 3 years, it was
yeah,
just
yeah,
like more of building our team. So walk me through like the initial time
yeah.
after the decision to actually getting something on the ground.
Yeah, sure. So, in fact, the moment I realized that this is a great opportunity, and then, from KGB days, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like I told, right, I didn't even want to sit for placements. I wanted to start a startup in college, but I didn't have the guts to start then. But then, now I really felt in the gut that this is the time, I need to start. I'm sure like nobody would want to like it, maybe my family will not like it, maybe maybe I'm losing a great opportunity to build my career in a wonderful organization like ISRO. Maybe I may not win, I may become a loser, after starting the company. All this happened, but I felt down in the gut that this is the right decision to do. This is the right time to start this company. And then this is very, very important for India as well, so that was a very strong feeling. I felt that this is actually nation building. You build nation by building such companies and such talent in the country and such infrastructure in the country. So that really pulled me through, and I was so confident that I need to take this happen. And the moment I realized that I'm going to quit, I think just within a month I quit. I came out of ISRO, and then and I was even prepared for probably I thought like maybe we'll raise like 1 crore or 2 crores capital. I was even prepared for even not even raising capital. Even if I don't raise capital, I thought like I'll invest all my savings, and then see maybe I could do a little bit, in that I was so prepared for that. But even my positive I expect that maybe I could raise 1 or 2 crores just to start. That was my mindset at that time. Either I don't raise anything, so I spend my savings, or maybe I'll raise 1 2 crores, 1 to 2 crores, and then like we start some operations, start building the team. And luckily, there was my friend, one of my friend called Balaji. I was introduced to him, and like we were chatting about this startup, and we were thinking like maybe he can also join us once we start, and then he started helping us raising funds, etc. And then, he sent a LinkedIn message to Mukesh Bansal, saying that, see, this is what we are starting. Two ISRO scientists have come out, and then, we are looking to start a private rocket company. And then Mukesh Bansal immediately replied saying that, I'm interested to meet. And then we met him in Bangalore. We traveled to Bangalore, and then within 45 minutes, I mean, like, it was supposed to be like a very brief meeting, probably 10 15 minutes meeting, and then it extended to close to an hour of meeting. And then like Mukesh was so excited that he was just exited Flipkart and Myntra, and then he was looking to partner or invest in some cutting edge deep tech company in India, and he loved space. He loves space, and it was this opportunity, and he felt he liked our vision. He liked the way are leaving our jobs and starting this. The way like we are thinking about the future of the space industry, and immediately he committed to invest. And then like we got 10 crores. My expectation was either no money or like maybe 1 2 crores, and we got 10 crores on probably day one when we started the company. And then we registered the company. Just in few days of registering the company, we got the 10 crores. And then we built a team of like, like 15 people to start with. And then like still remember July 19th is when we started our operations. And that is our annual day at Skyroot. We celebrate every year. And then July 19th we started, and then with 15 people we started, and then like by the end of the year it became 35 people, and the same people we ran for like 2 to 3 years, and we built some rocket engines, we started testing them, and then like and then like that's the first I would say like the first 3 years, 3 months to 3 years of Skyroot.
So Pawan, like so talent does not exist in the country outside of ISRO. Like, so when you hired the initial
Yeah.
team, was it like just full of ISRO scientists who were like, hey, we want to go to the private sector? Or did you build out that talent because you had the skill as two co-founders?
Yeah, yeah. So one thing like because we both Kokumi and Bharat, right? Both of us like are been like in the rocket industry. We were part of. So we both were scientists at ISRO. So we knew the tech to a decent extent. So we knew whom to hire. So what we did is that we were sure like we can't afford like large number of ISRO people, and we can't afford. In fact, like it's quite expensive to hire a very experienced ISRO scientist at that point of time, and many people would not want to leave their very stable jobs and join startups. That was not the environment, so we cannot get ISRO talent. So what we tapped on is like there are a lot of retired scientists from ISRO who have like amazing talent and who are available because there was no private industry. They were available at that point of time. So we got the best of the best brains. So we got Mr. Jnana Gandhi. He's a Padma Shri awardee. He's a cryo. He's called the Cryo Man of India. He built the cryogenic rocket tech in India when India was denied technology from Russia. So he was leading that team who built that, and he built it for 40 years. He was into rockets, and then we onboarded him, and then he was very excited to be part of it, and he was part of our initial team. And then we got one scientist from DRDO who has been building, probably worked with Abdul Kalam, and then he's been building propulsion systems all his life, and a couple of veterans, and then few experts from ISRO and DRDO who joined us. And then but mainly we got all the youngsters from ancillary industries, from aircraft industry, from services industry, from engineering services industry, and many freshers, and all that is a mix of all these people we brought together. And then these are all phenomenal people. In fact, like we got some of the best talents at that point of time, and then many of them went on to build like the company for 5 years, 6 years, and made tremendous contributions to the sector.
Wow, so what you're saying is since you had some insights into the industry, you were able to bring
Yeah.
people from those areas. And I mean, looks to me like what is because there is a momentum that you are building when you are starting up. So you were able to get
Yeah.
these people because of like, hey, this is for India and India to the world kind of thing, or like because I don't think these people would be motivated. Like, how could you motivate them?
Yeah, so I think one thing was that India, I mean, did not have an OEM in the aerospace sector. I mean, there was no like a emerging company which is building its own stuff, designing and building its own stuff. So either contractors to the government or like they are like smaller companies or engineering services to MNCs abroad, right? So that was the environment there. So there was no ecosystem in the private industry at all. So for aerospace engineers, for mechanical engineers who were like dreamt of dreaming big, doing something bigger, bigger of what they have studied, and then they are more passionate. For them, they were really attracted about what we're building, like building rockets from India in the private sector. And SpaceX has been like quite famous at that point of time. So that also really helped that people thought, okay, there is something like SpaceX coming in India, so let's be part of the journey. That's also like one motivation. And also like the environment outside was not very great. I mean, like we don't have great companies people are working at. So this felt like a better company to actually put their bet on. And then also like they like the fact that the ISRO people are starting them. So that also gave some credibility that ISRO people are quitting their jobs and coming out and starting. So that also added to the credibility. And also like the mission is quite exciting. Space is exciting. The rockets are exciting. And it's cutting edge aerospace stuff. And also like we pitch to early employees, as well as how we pitch to investors. So that was required to bring on board some really good people. And in fact, like I remember like doing interviews or like chatting with people to join the company, and we didn't even have a website at that point of time. People, when they googled what this company is, they couldn't even get them, so they had to trust us in and join the company. Company was only registered for a few days, right? And then like and you'll not believe, it took money from it took some time to get our seed fund. And of course, because it takes time for processing and doing all the legal work, and then get the money from the investment, so it takes some time. And we recruited like 15 people in this time, that means we didn't have money in the bank, but we
Yeah.
recruited 15 people. And so that was because we believed that anyway this is going to happen. And then we took that leap of faith again, and then rolled up. We wanted to do make things quick, and then we got some really good people. We had to go meet them, pitch to them, get their trust, and then they joined. Even I
Mhm.
remember like I heard that many people joining us on the first day, they were still doubtful, is this a real company? So we got
That's so
we got an
funny.
offer letter. We got an offer letter, but is this a real company? Are they really exist, or is this something like out of the random? So that's how the journey began, and then it was like quite fun to build a
Mhm.
company over the last 6 years. Yeah.
Mm. So, Pawan, like, I think you have broken all the norms of what India is hurt for, which is like it's a lot of bureaucracy, it's a lot of corruption, especially on a government sector. And this is like space as a new sector. And you are saying like you were able to build a company. Now tell me like how what are you seeing in from a bureaucratic side in India about like the change or the difference you have seen, or like, and what are the areas that India still has a long way to go when you look at the West world or whenever you come to countries like, let's say, the US?
Yeah, I think a very, very good question, very apt question, Atal. So basically, I'm sure like whenever we were on in KGP in that timeline of India, right? So most of us used to think that government is like either corrupt, or they don't get things done, or policies take decades to build, and there's a lot of red tape. And then you need like probably like the big businessman to like do some lobbying to make things work and all this. This is what the image we had of India, and that's exactly the same image I had. So that's the reason why I prepared for the worst. Like when I quit ISRO and started Skyroot, I thought it'll take 10 years. It takes 10 years for the policy, all this to come up, but I was prepared for the long run, basically. That's how I came out. But I was surprised that, after starting Skyroot, in fact, like I was surprised that the government, I mean, we wrote a lot of letters, we talked to politicians, the ministers, and it was quite surprising that they were very receptive. And then like they already had plans to build a space policy. They believed that this is the right thing for the country. And then within just 3 years, I mean, the COVID hit, COVID hit, and then government announced a slew of policies, reforms. And then one of the biggest reform was like the space policy. All of a sudden they realized, and it was like, 7 years earlier than what I imagined, so
So
that's
did you
that's
did you have
that's
a role to play in even getting this policy change? Like, did you guys lobby for this a little bit that, hey, this needs to happen? Like, I can see you were there in the for the long run, but a lot of people give up, or like maybe I don't know. Some can say that, hey, this is an excuse of not doing it, not doing something which is like hard. But
Yeah.
how do you see, like, for you? I mean, I see you are an ultra optimist. You can, like, just like figure out, solve problems. But I mean, there are challenges too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, in fact, like we did a lot. We used to meet like all the politicians. We used to write a lot of letters, and we gave a lot of. We did our thing, whatever possible, to get the policy faster. And then and then there's also they also took suggestions. They took suggestions from companies wanting to build space companies, and we gave our suggestions, and they also implemented a lot of suggestions in the policy. I mean, like they're quite receptive beyond what I imagined. So that's now like surprisingly good India than what we all used to imagine, about the government. So that was a really good thing. And then and I still remember the minister, the then minister Nirmala Sitharamanji announced the space policy in the TV. That's when the first time we came to know. We were so excited that this is becoming real. But then the first 3 years of building Skyroot, for me, the number one risk was never the technology or the funding. It was always the policy. For me, in my mind, I thought that maybe we'll get all the technology, maybe we'll get all the money, but the policy will going to kill us. That's it's going to take much longer than what we expect. What we're expecting, or it's not going to even come through, or it'll be like a different. It'll be a dirty game of red tape. Even to get to things what we are doing. So that's what I imagined when we started off, and then like even when the policy was announced, I was thinking like, okay, it's just an announcement. And then from this to actual, execution, it is going to take like years and years, because to convert to a policy, into a legislation, into a law, and into getting cabinet approvals and all that, is going to take years and years. And in between, like the government changes and everything goes, and but still, even after the policy was announced, it's still the first biggest risk I imagine in my mind, that policy is going to be the biggest bottleneck. But then what happened? The government did something really, really incredible, which I never imagined. What they did is that they formed an independent agency, called
Hmm.
InSpace,
Hmm.
just for regulating and authorizing the space activities. So that is like,
Hmm.
they did not put ISRO as the agency, because if ISRO is put in the agencies, there could be like conflict of interest, or there could be like ISRO has its own plans, they have their own this thing, so they also taking the role of like building up private space startups may not be an ideal structure to have. So the government realized that you need a very independent body to regulate this sector, and then they brought an industry veteran. They brought in Dr. Pawan, who was like the MD and CEO of Mahindra and Mahindra. He's from the industry. He was built in the industry. And instead of putting a government person at the helm, they put a industry person at the helm to run it. So that's how progressive the government thought. And then they established in space, and then the team was formed, and then they were so efficient. They were like so, you can say like they were asking us, like they took all our problems, whatever the issues we were facing, and then they enabled us so well. Literally, I think InSpace was formed, I remember, in I think May or June of 2022. Officially formed the organization, people moved in, and then like within 5 months from there, we've launched India's first private rocket launch. So and actually building a rocket is so tough, and giving a permissions for a rocket for the very first time in the country, because you need insurance, you need like government permissions, you need like coordination with like various ministries to make it happen. It's a highly it's a safety oriented thing. Multiple departments, multiple ministries have to come into picture. It's not an easy, as difficult as building a rocket is to actually give the permission to build that, to build that rules and regulations to actually give a permission for a rocket launch. And they did it so fast, so efficiently. And I that's even like that proved that this is new India. Even as I told, right, I still believe that biggest risk was the policy. And you'll not believe, even before our launch, I was at Sriharikota. I was in the middle of the launch campaign. Just 2 weeks before the launch, also, I thought policy was my biggest bottleneck. The rocket will be ready. It will be close to the launch pad. Maybe it will be on the launch pad, ready to launch. But I was not sure that I will get the paperwork, for the permissions and permit to launch. So that's the kind of thought process I was in. And then everything, I think all these are all turned out to be like, if I look back, actually policy has become the least bottleneck. That's what the government made sure that it is so efficient, so fast. It's never like the government we imagined. This is it was so surprising for me, and so soothing for me, and so inspiring for me to see India moving this direction. And then, like, I see countries which are stuck in red tape. Their private companies there, they don't get permissions on time. There's no clarity on the regulations, and uh, and then sometimes many of them lose months and months of time, doing all this paperwork. And in India, it's like, we launched India's first private rocket launch without even a single day of delay in the entire process, despite being the very first time which is happening in the country. So that's the kind of efficiency the government has been operating, and it's like pleasantly surprising and very inspiring to see that they happen in India.
Wow. This is very good to hear from someone who is actually in the game right now over the last 5 years, you know. But I mean, I also see like maybe there is a, I mean, this is not the case for every industry in India. This is like very much maybe specific to space, which is now more of focus for India. But like to me, looks like there was some godfather out there who was like sitting on this that I want this done. Now you make it happen to all the policymakers because it doesn't look like to me like a very much about how India works, or even if I think about thousands of other problems that exist in India from bureaucracy side, like they are not getting the same attention the way this part got.
Yeah, so that could be, one thing we can say, but like I've seen, like, people in other industries also, like, I think, benefit a lot. In fact, we deal a lot with the Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Home Affairs, different kind of ministries. They're all like, we're Ministry of Finance, and they're all like, very, very forthcoming, very forward thinking. And I mean, I think there's really now India is new India. I think leadership is new leadership. And I think the government is really committed to make things happen really quick. For example, I was also surprised at a drone policy, which has come up, a few years ago. And then, like, after the policy was released, I remember, like, just within few days, they took all the feedback from the industry and updated the policy again and sent a new policy document. That's the
Wow.
kind of level the government is operating. I think that now is a different India for sure, across industries. There could be
Mhm.
like maybe few struggling industries with not much focus, but I think like whatever needs attention is really getting the kind of support which is required.
Very cool. That's amazing to hear that you are seeing all these things happening on the ground, which means it just tells like if there is an innovator sitting in India somewhere, that policy would be solved if they focus on building, like just like how you did.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, like, I'm advising few hardware tech companies, which I really like. And then, it's very clear, because they are also like highly regulated industries. And then like, and we see in each of these industries, our government is the fastest one to give regulatory clearances, most efficient one than compared to most other countries. So I think this is like something really crazy, which is not seen in India before. I mean, like at the time we grew up in India was a completely different time, and especially when we were in college, that time was a different India. I think now it's a completely different India, and then that's what is enabling the next generation of innovation, entrepreneurship, and then putting us ahead of many other countries which are way more advanced than what India is right now.
Yeah, but great, Pawan. So I think my next question to you is, you looks like you are on to a great start with you already have success, more success is coming. And we have the US, which is at a different side. Now I think Elon as a leader
Yeah,
is like pushing for Mars. And there is a big
yeah.
difference. First step is orbit, second maybe is moon, and maybe third is Mars, and then the in multi-planet, you know? So in this, there
Yeah,
is still a very wide gap between innovators in India and innovators in the US. Like, how do you
yeah.
see India is catching up to that, and what is
Oh, I
needed?
mean, yeah, yeah. So space is super long-term, Atal, and so literally, and you would see like SpaceX is what I mean, 22 years old company. So it's more than 2 decades old. It's a very, very old company. It's like, and then like in the last 22 years of SpaceX's existence, there are like maybe only 3 or 4 companies which have launched to orbit. That's it. I mean, like, so that's the kind of the time it is, because space is a super long term, super expensive, and super challenging industry. And everything here, for example, Skyroot is taking more than 6 years to go to orbit. It's like that is also like one of the quickest time ever by any private company. And so it needs that kind of long-term gestation, and then you need that kind of capital, that kind of spirit, that kind of government support. Very few countries have this ecosystem. Like I said, like less than 8 countries have the capability to build their own rocket and launch them. So I think the world, yeah, despite there is like a gap in innovation, I think it is a very long-term industry with very few players, and it's wonderful to see that India is emerging as one of the key players in the space industry, even in the private space sector. It is already top 5 in the government space agencies, and then it is going to be definitely in the top 2 or 3 in top 3 in the private space arena for sure.
Got it. So, Pawan, like, there is a lot of this is like one way you saw the ambition, you use the ambition in you to take humanity ahead, the way you build it. Okay. Now, there are like all these ideas in the world that, okay, we can take someone to Mars or to Moon, or like humans can go to Mars and live there. Like, still, I mean, in a way, I see Elon as like, leading a lot of these new missions, which is like since they are ahead already in the game. Like,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah,
think India can think different? Like, not thinking how the West is thinking, but thinking different
yeah.
and taking India way ahead, or like, how can we think different in this whole ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think everybody has their own way of building stuff in space. Space is the future, and I strongly believe that space is the future, is the next frontier. And I strongly believe that if steel has built modern civilization, space is going to build future civilizations. And then so that's where the tech is so important. It's like generational, and then like you need to get better and better at tech. And then I think and Elon's raw motivation to go to Mars in his lifetime and establish a colony is what actually pushes the boundaries of innovation in the space tech. What rockets were 50 years almost the same, and SpaceX is doing it them differently. So they started getting into reusable vehicles, and then Elon has a strong drive to put up a colony in Mars and put up a self-sustainable civilization, make life multi-planetary. These are all like and then none of these subjects are actually like anything. I would say like none of them are like very very novel concepts. They have been there for ages. People's imagination. They were like proposed in the 1950s, 60s during the space race. Right in space, man landed on moon in 1969. This is how many years ago? Just 1969 is when man landed on the moon. So I think this vision was for space has been like there for decades, but SpaceX has brought life to it. Literally brought life to it with a strong motivation and doing from the private sector rather than being dependent on the government budgets or the taxpayer money. And that's the unique way of doing things. I think that's also the similar path for India as well. So it needs to have like, for example, SpaceX is very well supported by NASA, and then like and they have their own commercial market, globally, and they're like building on top of that, and then like going to the next big things basically. So it's basically a journey forward. And same thing, I think in India, like I mentioned, the belief that the future of the Indian Space Industry Agency is like a strong private space sector in conjunction with a strong public agency which we already have in the form of ISRO. So that's the path for India as well. So though we started late, we still are amongst the best ecosystems in the world right now. And then like how and what we are in fact like at least what at Skyroot we are focused in is we don't have like a great interest in Mars per se, but we have a lot of interest in orbit, where like I think there'll be like a lot of sustainable habitats and sustainable life beyond Earth in orbit, and there'll be a very vibrant ecosystem, in orbit. And then so Skyroot, we are singularly focused on solving transportation from Earth to space. Going to Earth from Earth to space, whether it's for cargo and in future humans, is to start with satellites and all this. So everything from Earth to space, it should be like as easy as like hopping onto a flight and going from one place to another place on Earth. That we want to make space flight as easy as that. That's a big vision, and that can enable like a lot of extraordinary stuff in space, like large colonies in orbit, and then people going to orbit, people living in space, people working in space, people manufacturing stuff in space. There'll be like very vibrant manufacturing ecosystem in space. There are like extraordinary like materials which can only be produced in microgravity and space environments, which itself is a multi billion-dollar opportunity. So I think Earth economy, low Earth, what we can call it as low Earth orbit economy, which is economy beyond Earth but in low Earth orbit, will be like a big thing, and then that requires like more and more launches, easier launches, and then that can be like the main focus of India. And of course, the same technology can be used to explore beyond the low Earth orbit, the Moon, Mars, and beyond as well.
Got it. So I think I'm curious to understand your rationale, why you focus or why you have like focus on orbit and not thinking about the Mars.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's a step-by-step process. I mean, it's important to also think about Mars. Okay. So, and it's also important to think about Moon as well. And so Moon is important, Mars is important, and understanding more about the solar system is important, and orbit is also important. So that's where like, and I think most of the transformation for humans will come from orbit. Whatever is going to happen in orbit, whether it is, living, working, manufacturing in space, and tourism in low Earth orbit, right? So all this is going to build that economy, which is going to transform life on Earth. Like for example, a constellation of communication satellites is going to bring high bandwidth internet across the globe for 50% of the world population who didn't have like high bandwidth internet before. So that's going to transform lives like never before. Even a farmer in a village can now check their smartphone and understand the health of their crop from a satellite on in low Earth orbit. So that this can really transform lives in various sectors on India. So that's where I think India has always been about transforming human lives, and then I think low Earth orbit is the gateway to it. And in fact, like the founder of the Indian space program, whose name is Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, right? So he put it very beautifully that when he put the vision for ISRO, he said that we don't have the fancy to explore the cosmos and compete with advanced nations, but we want to be second to none in putting up technology for the benefit of common man. So that's how TV has come in India. That's how communications have come in India. That's how farmers are using space technology. That's how hospitals are using space technology for communication. There is telemedicine. There are so many space technologies transform life in India. Whether it is like weather reporting, very accurate weather reporting. Even fishermen in India use space technology to identify best shoals of fish from the satellites, from satellite data, so that they do not waste. Like they save even billions of dollars of fuel. By identifying the potential fishing zones, which the satellites help them to understand where it is. So I think the common man in India is affected by space. That has been the big vision. And I think the future vision also, I think, to focus on where it can transform life on Earth better. And that is, I think, the roadway to that is orbit. But having said that, I think it's really important for life to become multiplanetary. You can go beyond, life can go beyond Earth, go to orbit as well. But I think it's very important life to become multiplanetary. That means you need like independent, civilizations and consciousness beyond Earth, because Earth is not going to last long, and Earth's resources are not enough to support, trillions of human beings. And space has every resource in the world which can support like trillions of human beings. So Earth is not scalable for human civilization, the kind of, the genius we have built ourselves to be. So Earth, we need to protect Earth, but also like, we need to like expand beyond Earth and, go into planetary. So I think, so to start with, I think our roadway or the gateway would be like, to have a very strong and sustainable low Earth orbit economy, and also parallelly also have, presence beyond Earth in, Mars or Moon or even beyond.
Correct. So in a way, maybe what you are saying, Pawan, you are like setting up the infrastructure for other companies, or like, maybe at some point you will pull off the moon or the Mars mission, but you are setting up the infrastructure
Absolutely, yeah.
that will benefit the common person who's like in India.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so I think common man across the globe, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's like the same space technology can be used by people across the globe, and then I
Yeah.
think this transforms lives as what we imagine. And yeah, that's how it is. And then everything is important. Going multiplanetary is important. Going low Earth orbit is important. Having a very sustainable economies, both in low Earth
Yeah.
orbit and beyond low Earth orbit, is very important, right? So
Yeah.
everything
Pawan,
is
so
important.
what?
Fundamentally, the
Yeah.
question is still the
Yeah.
rockets are the same. So there's the same technology
Yeah.
which will
Yeah.
enable both.
Yeah. So, Pawan, you kind of slowly touched on like, okay, human infrastructure for in terms of scalability, Earth is not designed for scalability of a trillion people, while you are saying
Yeah,
that in infrastructure in space is there to support humanity, like survive as a species. And what I keep hearing whenever I read is like, no, 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 there is an oxygen issue, this issue on
yeah.
across the planet. Like, can you explain a little bit on that?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's very natural to think. But the point is that, you can, for example, let's take an example of Mars, right? So Mars is the nearest big planet for us, and if you see Venus is like, super high pressure. It's like, a lot of acid, and Venus is not at all convenient to for life. But the closest planet, which is convenient for example, even Moon, which even though close to Earth, it's orbiting around Earth. It's very small. Moon is very small, and then it doesn't have atmosphere. But Mars has an atmosphere. Mars has like, a 24 hours day. Like on Earth. You'll see like sunrise and setting up similar to the similar rhythm of, Earth. And then Mars has a lot of water. If you just melt water on Mars, it will be several tons of feet of water on Mars already existing today. And so Mars has water, Mars has an atmosphere, Mars is like similar day as Earth. So Mars has all the resources you want, just that the atmosphere is so thin compared to Earth that you cannot just go out walking on Mars. So you need to be in an habitat. But I think this all technology is right now advanced enough to have like large amount of colonies which have breathable air which can be produced from Mars, because Mars has a lot of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and carbon dioxide can be converted into oxygen very easily. And then that oxygen can be used to for breathing of people, and hydrogen also can be converted into oxygen, right? So there is plenty of oxygen indirectly existing in Mars, which can be, with today's technology, which can be, in fact, if you realize, right, today, how many of us go outside our homes or our offices? You just count the number of hours in our life where we are outside our own habitats, which is our house and office, is negligible, right? So that's exactly
So
what's
true.
going to be in Mars as well. So you'll always be in a habitat, but that's quite, we are quite used to living in habitats all our lives. And then technology is going to enable that habitats, and it's not very far that man can live like very long duration with the technology which we already have.
In a way, I mean, if I imagine a scenario like Pawan is like you living on Mars and we having this conversation, and you are saying like, "Hey, I'm just on," instead of like saying just like you are in India right now, you are saying like, "Hey, I might be in Mars right now, and I would have the same kind of conversation with you while I'm on Earth." Like, you are saying this is very much possible in on Mars in the near future.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think definitely. I think living on Mars is totally, I mean, doable in the tech which we already have, and then the kind of For example, what SpaceX is doing, I'm sure, like, once Starship is going to go like, operational, on a daily launch routine, I think it'll be like cheap enough for like going, sending large set of humans and cargo to Mars every 2 years, and then, we have enough like infrastructure to build a sustainable colony there. There'll be like initial set of people will be like adventurers who want to explore Mars, who want to build the ecosystem there and build all set things up there so that for other people to come back or come there. So I think it'll be very exciting. I think it's really exciting to have I'm sure like I think in our generation people will start living in Mars already, and probably there'll be a lot at work in very harsh environments. But still, I mean, it's part of the game to establish a new, get into a new territory, like something else in the solar system than what it is on Earth. So that'll be quite exciting, and we can definitely like have a conversation from Mars to Earth. Just that there'll be a lot of delay because the electromagnetic waves take a lot of time to come from Mars to Earth. So there'll be like it'll not be like a conversation like here. It'll be like there's a lot of gap, but still I think you can have a conversation from Earth to Mars for sure.
Yeah, hopefully during the time there might be a change in the technology too, that can support that.
Yeah, maybe possible,
Um,
but speed of light is speed of light.
After Mars, like if you
Yeah.
think about Mars as like the second part after Earth, which is like the other planets that are looking to you, where you are like, okay, after Mars, if Elon has not mentioned like beyond Mars, what do you think is the next planet which has a very much possibility of having a civilization like we have here?
Yeah, so I think like there are so many exoplanets across the universe. In fact, like there are like so many planetary systems in our galaxy itself, and just that today we are not good enough to go out of the galaxy. But we could go out of the solar system, explore like the nearby systems, and there could be like planet which is like as convenient as Earth as well, but we were just yet to explore them. And then the moons of Jupiter also have like some good common, convenient, environment for human life as well. They have like liquid oceans, etc., etc. So that way, I think as a planet, I think Mars is the only planet which can sustain long-term human life in the solar system, and a little bit of moons of Jupiter, but still they're not planets; they're still moons. But outside of the solar system, there is like a lot of chance to actually find an exoplanet which is very convenient for life. But I think that's the reason why Mars is very exciting because it is the nearest possible, a planet which can be sustain long-term life.
Very cool. Now, I think just like how you're describing, like, we are talking about these big missions in life and we are saying space tech is the future. And you are seeing a big movement towards space tech in India. There are a lot of startups now. You were the leader, but now they have like been a great infrastructure in this area. Now, I mean, to a young entrepreneur who is like thinking about, hey, how can I support this mission or how can I support India in on this mission? What are the opportunities you see for entrepreneurs in different areas?
You're talking about opportunities in the space sector alone or like across?
I mean, first, like maybe space sector based on your experience, and maybe when we can talk about everything also separately.
Yeah, sure. I think yeah, in the space sector already there are like more than 200 startups already established in the country. So a lot of people are coming up with a lot of innovative ideas. So I think and there's a lot of opportunity across various verticals. For example, we are from a vertical called launch vehicles, and even in launch vehicles also, you can build a different kind of launch vehicles than what we are doing. And so there's a lot of verticals there, so that can be like one opportunity. And then building satellites, so there's so many types of data you can generate from satellites, and you can also do communication from satellites, different types of communication through satellites. You can go for internet, you can go for IoT, you can go for like or you can go for imaging satellites in different kind of imaging. Like if you want to image in the night, you have radar satellites. You have like different spectrum infrared satellites where you can also see from in the night, etc. You can also image from Earth. So I think yeah, from satellite side there's a lot of opportunities. From launch vehicles also there is decent opportunity, and then there's a lot of opportunity from getting this data and then the data from satellite and then doing analytics and then supplying to various industries. That itself is like going to be $30 billion industry just to do analytics from images from space and then giving useful intelligence to various industries itself is like a going to be a $30 billion market soon. And that is a phenomenal opportunity. Or you can also think beyond Earth. You can build infrastructure beyond Earth. You can build like space stations. You can build like laboratories in space. You can build you can build like things for space tourism. Right, so there's phenomenal opportunities. I think space is a lot of opportunity. Of course, it's very challenging and long term, but I think it's a world of opportunity. And then it's just the beginning of the space era. So I think there'll be more and more things, exciting things unfolding in the space sector, and so many kind of sectors or subsectors to think of in the space sector.
Very cool. So, every industry grows when things become scalable or like, efficient from a capital perspective. Now,
Yeah,
I think there is a resource constraint always, especially when you are taking on like a mission which is like new. But then there is a consumer demand kind of sometimes come in. In your area, I feel like there is a consumer demand based on once you launch the rocket, you can
yeah.
like get the data and have a sustainable business out of it. Uh,
Yeah.
Now, I mean, how are you seeing like, interest in like that kind of demand of that consumer data or like the value that is getting generated from the space?
Yeah, I mean that's growing every year. In fact, like it's going like in very very large quantum every year. I mean at least the all the predictions are going very high. Like for example, today's space is like a $400 billion economy, and it is set to become $1 trillion economy in the next decade. And most of the growth is from the data and the communications and the economy beyond Earth also like which is also playing a big role in all these big predictions. And I can also sense it being part of the industry. I can sense that people there's a lot of applications of different kind of data, different kind of communication. Like for example, there's a lot of demand for broadband from space. So there's areas where it's very expensive to put like terrestrial fiber and terrestrial infrastructure for getting internet. It's much cheaper and easier to get from space. And then like in the kind of events where like there are like cyclones or there's a war or something, the entire terrestrial infrastructure gets completely damaged, and the only ways you can get reliable communication is from satellite. And in India, like most of the TV, you have a dish TV in your home. That's all from satellite. And a lot of ATMs in India are like connected directly from satellite, and then like as I said, like fishermen use satellite data in India. Like so tomorrow, like when you have fish on your plate, you remember that the fisherman, was helped by a satellite to get that fish and to build their livelihood as well. So I think there's so much of data requirement which is growing day by day, and it's getting cheaper because data is getting cheaper and cheaper every year because launches are getting cheaper, satellites are getting cheaper, and then a lot of competition, innovation coming into picture. So I think space services going to become more and more mainstream. Like for example, getting internet from space will become more affordable for people. Probably in your flights, I think none of us have the luxury to go in an aeroplane and then browse internet or YouTube videos on a flight connected to the internet. But this is going to happen in the next 5 years. You're going to get like low cost data right in your airplane, because the plane will be connected to the satellite, which is able to provide low cost internet directly to the plane, which and then beam it to all the passengers in the flight. So that way, I think that space is going to transform more and more people. It's going to get cheaper, and also I imagine, as I mentioned, right? So farmers having smartphones, checking the health of their farm, using an app which gets satellite data and analytics. So I think this is going to happen, as the data gets more and more cheaper and more and more advanced.
Very cool. And what are you seeing from a software side? This whole Gen AI wave is there. Are you seeing Gen AI wave impacting space tech directly, or do you see like what are the new things you see coming out of it?
So definitely, I think Gen AI has revolutionized, the way we think, the way we operate. Because previously I used to go to Google most of the day to find things. Now I'm like on ChatGPT always, right? So it's like in a moment, in a flash, literally it changed lives. So now we are like so dependent on Gen AI to make things happen, and it's going to grow like more and more because a lot of things can be done by AI better. And I think the lot of design analysis, the kind of optimization which AI can do, humans can never replicate probably, and or they're going to take more time, and they may be more restricted than that. So I think in future, building space systems, designing them, I think a lot of AI will be used because it's a very nascent stage for AI. So right now, there are no tools which take the power of AI. In fact, consumers ChatGPT is so advanced, but like all the tools for industry are still like age old. So they're also going to get impacted by AI soon with the same principles. And then I'm sure, like I think for designing component which goes into a rocket, I think AI will do a better job for sure. I mean, like they can do much more optimized, component in the rocket, and all that will become a more optimized rocket. You can put more payload into orbit, and you can actually make it much more efficient, lower cost, cheaper, better. You can have less people build extraordinary space products with AI. But still it's a very nascent phase for industry, especially even also space industry, and at least on the upstream, like building rockets and building satellites, AI is still yet to catch up. But there's a lot of AI on the satellite which is also going to come up. Like, for example, you need not like bring the image down from the satellite and then do all the analytics on Earth. You can actually have edge computing in the satellite itself, and then it has a lot of AI, to analyze everything, and directly beam out the analytics from the satellite itself. So I think AI is going to transform space industry as we know it for sure, starting with the data analysis part, and then like in future, and also design of space systems also is going to get affected by AI, significantly boosting the sector. I think AI is like the biggest shocker, for me in my life, and in a day it has changed everything, and I can't even imagine what is going to happen in the next 10, 20 years.
Wow, this is very cool. In this, just like, this podcast, I feel like you have given so many new startup ideas to people that there can be like at least like 20, 30 companies that can be built out of this. And I mean, the way I look at space is like, our civilization has been here. People fight wars because they don't have missions outside Earth. So the more
Resources.
explore, yeah, and the more, yeah, the fight
Oh,
for
yeah.
resources here,
Okay.
the more the more you
Yeah.
have missions outside Earth, then people can fulfill their ambition, and that just opens up a whole different world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think space is exciting, and also we need to spice up our lives, and I think space is going to give that spice where, like, as humanity, we all come together, work on building an ecosystem in space, which is so exciting and which can transform our lives on Earth and beyond. So I think so. Space is that's why I like rooting for space for my entire life, is because it gives me the kick of waking up every day in the morning, getting back to work, and then building stuff too, which can build the future.
Very cool. My last question to you, Pawan: how can people help you succeed in your bringing this to reality? A lot of people have capital, a lot of people have time, but you are doing great work, and I mean, people want to support you, especially KGPNs in our network. How can they support you now?
Yeah, so I think first thing is that KGPNs, don't think about the fat salary checks which you're going to get in, other industries and other companies. Take a leap of faith, get into the space sector, contribute to the space sector like how we are doing. And of course, like the things compound with time as the industry goes. I think, you would have a much better life, much satisfying, career than what you could do with other industries. So I think like more and more people looking into the sector is very, very important. We need the fresh, great, super agile, wonderful talent, coming up to the space sector. And I think KGPNs have in the DNA, to contribute really big into engineering. And I think you should take that leap of faith and get into the sector, irrespective of, just focusing on the short-term gains. That is my, I think, first message to, KGPNs. And then second is that build companies. So I think we have very, very less entrepreneurs than India has the potential of. I see a lot of great people having great potential to building companies, but they don't take that step, the initial step of, starting a company. I can't even count the number of people who discuss their startup ideas with me and never end up starting their company. But that is because that's something which we have to break. That mold is something we have to break. I think now is the best time to start any company. uh, you don't need to invest your money and become bankrupt. You don't need to. You do not need to worry about the world, looking different at you and starting a startup, because now startups are quite well accepted in the society. You can build the best career. You can build wealth. You can build for the country, you can build for the world. I think you can have a lot of satisfaction, a lot of independence. Nothing, and entrepreneurship gives something like no career can give. So I would always say, whenever I go and talk to students, I would say like entrepreneurship is the best career option. I mean, I don't understand how you can take any other career option, because this is the best career option. So I want more and more KGPNs to start companies, take that again, that leap of faith, which is very important, to start believe in themselves, and then start companies. Just take that one step, and you're 10 times better. You have become an order of magnitude better, believe me, because I've undergone this process. So even if you fail, doesn't matter. So the kind of learning you're going to get, the kind of perspective you're going to get, the kind of maturity you're going to get very early in your life is something is irreplaceable. It's literally, so precious, that we should not lose that opportunity of, if you have in you to start a company, don't discuss, just step out and start the company.
Very cool. Thank you so much for your time, Pawan. I think this is going to be very inspiring for a lot of KGPNs. I wrote a little blog post after our meetup about how you launch a rocket from RK Hall. So I was like routing for people from Panloop to come out with rockets, and through the whole KGP community, we are all cheering for you and supporting you, and to create more resources in this ecosystem. A lot of KGPNs going to reach out who want to be build. And thank you so much for your time and contribution to this industry and taking India ahead on this stage.
Oh, thanks, Adel. Really thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and then it's great that you're bringing that energy and enthusiasm into the KGP community, and all the best to all the kind of work you're doing, and also all the KGPNs. Our heart is always, you can always, like we have that saying, right? You can you can never remove a KGP from a
KGPN.
KGPN, right?
Mhm.
So. Yeah, so I think it'll always be there in our DNA, and it's for us to cherish and support each other. And all the best to each and every one of you. And with that, good night to everybody in India. And then and I think you just woke up, so I leave you to the day, and
Yeah.
see you. Bye
Thank
bye.
thank you thank you so much, Pawan. Thank you.